Hey there, it's Katie Joy, the Global Butterfly, and welcome to my podcast today. And I'm going to share with you a little bit of an interesting journey with the intention of helping you if you're going through a spiritual awakening at the moment, or a little bit of in the tumbling aspect of it, the dark phase of it, and wondering, how do all the pieces of your life come together? Why are you where you're at now? And, what does it all mean? And how do you best move forward? That's the better question, right? But in order to be able to ask that quality question and have a solution to solve whatever dilemma or problem or stuckness that you're in your path, it really pays to have a look, put your attention on all of the things in your past that I believe are milestones, or they're placements that your soul, the life lessons that your soul needed to go through, as it has been with mine as well, to prepare you for where you're at right now. I don't know about you, but I know I'm feeling a massive quickening happening spiritually, a massive awakening, not just with me, but with others that I'm witnessing and seeing, with clients that I'm working with people that are in my communities, to be able to, they're all saying, Katie, I'm not really sure how to put it into words, but something's really happening, and I'm uneasy, I'm uncomfortable. This doesn't feel right. Like and really what I want to just bring to light is that we are in a phase, in a point, in a crisis, if you like, of humanity, where we are literally no longer willing to tolerate, or we can't even sustain the energy of supporting the lies that have been fed to us as a collective anymore. And those of us that are awake, or at least feel things, we know things, but maybe not necessarily connected all the dots yet. But that the truth is not being told, and you are looking for the truth. Well, welcome to today's episode. I'm going to share with you some awareness that I've had, and maybe through that it will resonate for you to be able to look at for your own life and how it works for you and implements with you too. So I just wanted to sort of give you a bit of background and start with, what is the relationship in my experiences for my core life experiences that I can look at between my early years in my career of being a personal trainer, and then my career as a paramedic, and then I had created a massive property portfolio as well. I even did a small stint as a pilot, helicopter pilot, learning to fly. And what does all that have to do with psychopaths? My experience with those as well. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey, or just a short unpack. I'm not going to go for too long, but just a short unpack of how some of these core experiences, and I have many, many more, but I wanted to focus on these today, is that I wanted to share with you how I believe that they are relevant in putting all the dots coming together. Now, if you're listening to this or you're watching this podcast, then I know your soul's called you to be here. You are ready to receive this. You are ready to listen to this. You are ready to you're looking for your own permission slip to really stand in your own truth and speak your own truth, to shine your light, to release any attachments you have to fear around what people might think of you, about being approved of, about being enough, about even being worthy. It's time to let all that go and step fully in alignment with love, your frequency of love, the frequency of love, so that you can shine your truth too. But again, often it takes looking a little into the past, where we might feel wounded still, some elements that will show up, and until you integrate those experiences and turn those wounds into being awakened, you're going to keep struggling round and round in circles. And I know I did for a long time too. And anytime I get into a bit of a struggle or a spin, I go straight to looking for the illusion or the delusion that the lie that I have been buying into, or I'm believing, or I've got a limiting belief around something. I want to go and unpack it. So let's start. As a personal trainer, I was called to that very early on, like from the age of 16 through to my mid-20s. I was very much in the personal trainer realm. And to me, that was all about this energy of everything I've done has been about focused on energy in one form or another. And that one was more about my health and my fitness, and really sort of just learning to direct the nutritional quality in my body, understanding my body, really integrating a lot of those to make sure that health and fitness are high up on my list, for vitality. Because, you know, and I say this to my clients all the time, they come to me and they want to build their business or they want to go for certain goals. And, you know, money is a huge one that's up on the list. And people feel like that they need more money. And I'm like, hang on a second, that's only a symptom. Let's look at where your energy is, and let's look at harnessing and managing your energy first, because your energy is your number one asset. It is your key resource. Without it, you don't have life force, right? And you don't have the fuel to even allocate to being productive with your time, to then, you know, put your energy and focus onto something that's going to manifest value for others, that you'll bring back and see the reciprocation and the reflection of money flowing into your life as well. But in order for you to have finances flowing and more money, you need to be in your power. To be in your power means harnessing your energy. Back to the energy. So understanding that personal training, in my experience, was very much a really beginning that energy factor around health and energy. Then I stepped into the field of being as a paramedic. In fact, I was very called into that, and there's quite a long story about how I even got into that, but it was, on the surface, it looked like by default, and it sort of landed into it, but it was very much spiritual guidance, I believe. Again, that story is for another day, but I just wanted to highlight the element that as my paramedic was really about, again, a deeper dive into health, but mentally, emotionally, physically. And again, for me, it was understanding patterns. I was in the ambulance service for nearly 8 years, initially as a patient transport officer, and then I stepped into the role as paramedic, did the training for that and completed that. And what I witnessed in my energetic training, my awareness around that, it helped me to identify the patterns of humanity again, and the patterns of, you know, trauma, the patterns of medical lifestyle choices that ends up in these symptoms, sometimes in critical and sometimes and more often chronic, but chronic that becomes so intolerable that they become it's like almost like in the middle of a short crisis, to be able to manage that again. But a lot of the energy, again, it comes back to energy, right? Where we are directing our energy is manifesting in our bodies. It manifests in the thoughts that we're having will manifest, whether if we're distracted, we'll end up in a car accident, for example. And because what we're thinking about, we bring about. And I can't even begin to tell you the amount of times I would rock up to scenes and I'd be doing the collection of information from, I'll never forget, I went to on Mount Henry Bridge one day, and there was an 11-car pileup, and my partner and I were the first ones at the scene. And there were 11 stories to collect. Thank God there was no deaths in this, but there were some injuries, but there were 11 stories from 11 people, 11 perspectives, right? And I tell you, not one of them were the same. Interesting, right? So one of the key things that I learned really well was, without hearing a story, I could look at the patterns of energy, and whether that was the patterns of force, patterns of mechanical force, the patterns of direction and energy, the patterns of intention. So for me, that was a really huge spiritual training camp for me, to be able to bring those elements together and really understanding energy in the way of health, mentally, emotionally, and physically, really connecting those at another level. Then there's an aspect of my life that I also invested a lot of time, energy, and money getting mentors to teach me and train me in property investment. And I built a property portfolio a couple of times over, several times over, up and down, up and down. But the point is, with that one, what I wanted to share with you is the skills that I learned through that, and was managing my money, which money is a finance. Finance is energy. Money is energy. And you've got to stand in your power to be able to command energy and harness and master the energy, so you can direct the flow of it. And for me to be able to I literally created millions through property, and I've lost millions too, and I've created much more and then lost more and creating more again. So I'm just letting you know that anytime I've noticed that I've given away my power, I've also lost money. Anytime I stand in my power, I attract money. And that's not just money, but abundance, prosperity in all facets. In fact, the journey that I've had already in the property development, the property investing, was I really learned deeply that while I had created a lot of success originally with that, it was very much still anchored in fear, not love. It was about moving away from something that I didn't like rather than really towards the dream and the vision. That was strong too, but I realized that there were roots of fear in it. And anything that you're going to design as a dream or a goal that has roots in fear, it will always meet its end. let me give you some heads up on that. It's not sustainable because it doesn't have the frequency of love to take it through for the evolution that will come to a completion. If it's in fear, it will come to a natural destruction and death. And so because when I built out my property investment portfolio, a lot of it was driven by the fear of where I was at in a relationship that was really dysfunctional and really unhealthy. And a lot of that was reflecting within my own, internal dysfunctionality, the separation of parts of myself and not dealing with all the shadow aspects within me. And so that reflected back in attracting and allowing some of the behaviors that went on inside that relationship, because at that time, there was parts of me that didn't feel like I was worthy enough for anything different, for anything more. And so it's interesting because everything, you're in relationship with everything at all the time. There's nothing that is separate. We might have these illusions that we're separate and we're isolating maybe work from our relationships or career from our health. But the reality is that it's all interconnected. Everything's energy. And energy is everything. And so if we've got any aspect of ourself that is suppressed, oppressed, or denied, it doesn't mean it's not visible and not there. It will manifest in symptoms in some way, either in your health, your wealth, or your relationships, whether they're intimate with partners or friends or family or clients, even the relationship with money, everything we're in relationship with. So wherever you're stuck or struggling with, often we point the finger at that thing being the problem, like the lack of money, for example. But the root cause is always the relationship you have energetically with money. Like, for example, I know that if you looked at money and personalized it, if it was a person and you sat down and had a conversation out loud about all the things you believed about money as a person, would that person feel good around you? Would they shrivel up and cringe with how much detest or hate or pushing away of it, right? And so reflecting back and looking in at the relationship that you have with anything is so important, because especially when you have a relationship with yourself, all aspects of yourself, now you're coming from a whole state and you're in your power, you're standing in your light, and you can then harness and master the flow of your energy, being in your own authority. And when you're doing that, you'll attract more wealth, not just money, but an abundance of wealth and in finance, in relationships, in opportunities, in all sorts of things. So I got to see that play out a lot in property investing and learning my skill set because when you're also in your authority, here's the key thing: you believe you're worthy. And so when you believe you're worthy about something, you're going to take actions in alignment with believing that to be true, because you have this perception of yourself, this internal self-image of, I'm worthy. But if we're in any shame or lack of worthiness, which is related with the third chakra and your personal power, then you're going to give away your authority. You'll give away your power because you don't trust yourself. And if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to trust yourself with money or finance. So you're going to push it away energetically. Right? It makes sense, doesn't it? And so it's really important, some lessons around this is like learning to trust your intuition, learning to trust yourself, especially if you're listening to this, because you're listening to this podcast. I know that you're an energy worker, that you're a light worker, that whatever you want to, wherever you fit on the spectrum of energetic healing or awareness, or whether you're a starseed or indigo or crystal child or whatever label you want to put onto it, or not, preferably. But the thing is, you have an awareness around energy, and a lot of the elements maybe feel like they're separate, and you're trying to look and connect the dots. Then I want to let you know and just remind you that the biggest dot of all is in your third chakra, being really connected with the truth of who you are, being in your power and your authority. And let me give you a little journey of why this is important, because this is where I'll jump forward a little bit to the psychopaths in a minute, actually, and I'll come back to this personal power, because what's really important is the one in between. When I got inspired by a mentor of mine to take up flying helicopters, right? I wanted to be able to have that experience. And so I went and got my student pilot helicopter license. I did all the as in like the permission to fly. I did all the medical, passed all that, and started learning to fly. And I remember one of my very first experiences with my instructor. We sat in this Robinson 2-2, and we were sitting right in front of the hangar, and the hangar door was right in front of us while we were on the ground, and that's all I could see. I mean, this was a huge building in front of me. And what's really awesome, if you've ever been in a helicopter, if you haven't, you can imagine this, and how quick they are to zip up off the ground and gain height. Well, when we went through that experience, not only was it thrilling, but immediately I got to witness a whole shift in perspective just with being elevated up off the ground from in front of this hangar door, which it gave me this insight straight away. It's like, how often do we see ourselves up so close to the issues or the problems or the challenges that we have in our life, and they're so close to us, we're so connected with it, that our perspective of it is it looms, that's all we can see. And it looms right in front of us, and it doesn't look like there's any alternative. You can't necessarily see the options available to you, or what I call the portals of possibility, because you're so attached to the problem, you're so close to the problem. But when I zipped up, and all of a sudden I could see, we were elevated so fast, you know, I could see the ground, I could see the roads, I could see the buildings, I could see off to my left, I could see the ocean. Looking forward, I could and a little bit off to the right, I could see the city, and I could see off over to the hills when I all around me. And there was just this amazing experience. And all of a sudden, I just had this big map, this blueprint that if I wanted to describe access or where to go next, I had lots of options to choose from. If I was to have that height looking down where typically you might be walking or in a car, you're not going to have that advantage point of having that perspective. And so I never did end up getting my official license for being a helicopter pilot, but I did do a number of trainings. And the biggest lesson experience I got out of that was I had a lot of fun and a lot of thrill ride learning to fly, but I most of all got the experience energetically of that how we create healing, how we create a shift in our life is through the shift of perception. And when we shift our perspective, we shift our perception of what's possible for us, what's possible in the world. We create these portals of possibility. When we shift our perception, we then shift into what we believe is true, or we break away from those lies that we possibly thought were true, and they're no longer true, because we're like, oh, I actually have a bigger picture that I can look at here instead of just the one hangar door. And then when you have a bigger perception, a bigger belief set of what is possible, then you're going to do different actions. And that's what's happened for me in my life. Every time I've connected with a mentor or a community who I know has a much more expanded perception than what I had previously before having that connection or that contact or that community. And it's what's helped me to be able to create even more portals of possibility for myself. Now, if you're on this call, then it's likely that you have had, you're a bright light yourself, right? And you've had moments in your life where you've been bright, and lots of times you've dimmed and you felt like you needed to contract because of fear, because of persecution or shaming, or you might have felt different, or people have told you that you feel different, like you're the black sheep in the family and no one seems to get you or understand you. If this is you, then hey, I get you, and a lot of my clients all feel the same way. And you know, you're, as an energy worker, a big part of our remembering, and this, I believe this is true for all of us, but I believe that if you're an energy worker, you're here for this moment right now in the humanity's experience, because we're going through this quickening, this acceleration and the Great Awakening. And our job is to remember who we are at the greatest capacity of who we are, so we can hold that space, that container of portals of possibility to help other people as the world as we know it is going to be it's already starting, crashing and tumbling down. Of nothing seems to make sense. And the most people have been conditioned and trained, including ourselves, conditioned and trained to having our perceptions shaped constantly, mind controlled through many pillars, if you like, through the governments, the media, our education system, even social media, everything. There's a lot of perceptual control to create this narrative about what life is, what your life is about. And a lot of it is very subtle and repetitive. And often until you awaken to be aware of what that programming is, it just seems like it's normal. That's life. That's what life is all about. But it's not. And I'm going to throw that one out there. What if it isn't, right? What if it isn't? And the thing is, if you're an energy worker, you've often probably had what I call moths to the flame. You've had dark experiences that, and you know, I'm not going to discount the reality of those experiences. I've had many of them myself, but I just want to, before I even share a little bit about my psychopath experiences, you know, going through them was very painful, but they were the greatest spiritual training grounds for me to prepare me for where we're at now. And I want to share an insight with you, is that I really believe that we're all spiritual beings having a human experience, and I'm sure you believe that too. But I want you to shift from the intellect to an experience of really embodying what I'm sharing with you, because when we go through experiences, particularly if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person and you've attracted other dark people in your life who have, you know, really pushed through and your boundaries, or maybe you didn't even have boundaries, because often people who are empaths and sensitives have been so deconstructed and programmed to not even have any. And so you get violated, you attacked, if you like, psychically and physically. By really narcissistic people, or sociopaths or psychopaths, which the last two also are on the spectrum of narcissism anyway. But the thing is, I believe that these experiences, whether they are a family experience or a friend or a partner or a boss or a colleague, or, hey, the government, right? People in the government, the system itself, rather than the people specifically. But there are lots of experiences that just don't necessarily make sense, and we tend to challenge and struggle with those. And while we are using our own perspective, we're up so close and get up to the hangar, like in the helicopter, and seeing the hangar so close. And the reason why we don't have the bigger perspective, if we're feeling stuck or struggle or feel like we're at the victim of people who are of that dark energy and literally sucking your energy dry, then that often is because our boundaries aren't in place energetically, physically, financially, or maybe we don't even know what healthy boundaries are. And there's a lack of self-love really truly poured in and from the inside out, because there's the base chakras of you know, your root chakra, which is out of balance, is very fear orientated. Your survival is all out of whack. You're in survival and you can't even get into thriving yet. And then if that's all out of whack, your sacral chakra is out. That means that your ability to create isn't available, because you're off in fight flight all the time, and in a chronic state of energetic disharmony. And so if you're in chronic fight flight, then you don't have the time, the energy, or the resources to be creative. And then also if those two are out, you're guaranteed that your third chakra, your solar plexus, is out, because you'll be giving away your power. You cannot possibly be in your power and experience fear, as in giving away your energy. Now, you might feel, you don't really feel fear when you're in your power. Like, you might have a moment of, you simply witness the illusion of something that could be fear, but you recognize that it's false evidence appearing real, no matter whatever it is. Because when you recognize that you're the sovereign being of your own life, you cannot, nothing can happen to you when you don't give away your power, unless you give consent, unless you comply, unless you authorize. And you can authorize without words. You can authorize with your vibration. If you're in fear, you're authorizing vibration. Fear is lunch for psychopaths. What do psychopaths want? They want your energy, right? That's what they want. That's what they go after. And I really believe it's a physical 3D experience, but it's also a spiritual experience of energetics that is really working through on multi-dimensions that really will drain you of your energy if you do not learn to harness and master your energy and stand in your power. And, you know, things about psychopaths, you know, I'm sure if you're listening that you've had this experience with somebody that would fit this, but essentially they work really hard to mimic your worldview, and you give away your power the minute that you project your worldview onto somebody else, trying to understand their behavior in your perspective. You cannot win the energetic game that way. You need to be able to shift, own your power of who you are. But if you want to understand the behaviors of someone else, or the you know, the symptoms that are showing up in your life, you need to be able to have a perceptual shift, to be able to get out of your worldview for the moment, to be able to recognize what's going on and where is somebody coming from, in order to understand the truth, the root cause, so that then you can act within your power, mighty power, your sovereignty of your own being, and make more intelligent choices. And that's not just mentally, but emotionally as well. And so psychopaths, and along the spectrum, and I'm just going to use the big term psychopaths because really it's blowing up and it's getting bigger, and it's it's pretty prevalent out there, right? It's a small portion, but it's really intense, and it's only intense when you give away your power. The minute you own and stand in your power, the psychopaths won't go for you. They can't, because you've got boundaries that they can't penetrate, and they don't like the vibration of love. They want to feed off the vibration of fear and anxiety and anger and doubt and unworthiness and shame and resentment. And these are all lunch for psychopaths and the psychic. It's the energies of psychopaths, because that's just the frequency that they're on. But if you're raising a vibration to be in the frequency of love and above, you are then going to be fully more standing in your power as well. The psychopaths, they look like they give you the world. They idealize you, right? But they can only do that if you're giving away your power. You can only accept that because you're looking for being loved, you're looking for being enough, you're looking for being approved of and validated and wooed. And like, when you stand in your power, all of that just is super creepy, right? It's just yuck. But when you're not fully in your power, and I've been there, right? But when you're not fully in your power, that's just like, for you, that's just feeding your soul, because you're in a lower energy. And you deserve to be in a higher energy. But the psychopaths know, and they can see, they have this incredible ability to see when people are in a lower vibration. And so they mimic the story of what you're projecting onto them to idealize you until you're hooked. Usually involves maybe in an intimate relationship, you're sexually engaged or really deeply emotionally engaged. You've gone in deep with commitments with people, whether it's financial or business or whatever it is, because they've filled out all these promises. But then they start devaluing, and this second phase of the 3 phases, this is where the gaslighting and the confusion starts getting in, because it's this polarization of behavior and verbal, and like, you know, love you, hate you, love you, hate you. It's really designed to strip you of any power that you have left, and really just have you so twisted and turned in any reality, you know, sense of reality of who you really are, that you've given away all your power. And once you're done with, like, you've given away all your power because they've just chewed you up for lunch, they will discard you. And it just makes no sense, right? Until they maybe they might come back in and out, and then you play that game again if you haven't found the awareness yet. But the no contact is vital. And just, this is a really short summary of just connecting you with the energy component, helping you understand that I believe that you have life stories, milestones in your life that are key experiences for you to learn. When you look at them, in one of my courses, it's a part of my Love Light Leadership Academy, I've got 3 pillars to it. I've got the Awaken Woman program that's all about really harnessing and mastering your energy, awakening and aligning to your energy and these skill sets, so that you've got this real ability to really truly love yourself, have these healthy boundaries, and then practice this discernment of what is your energy, what is not, plus teaching you the tools and the techniques of these energy technologies to be able to be in alignment with your energy. The second of the 3 pillars is SoulGal Academy, and this is like where we really design your life and your dreams and your goals, but in alignment with your soul's life purpose. And then for clients who want to do the next step, which is really stepping into the soulpreneurship, because they've awakened all their energy and they've got it harnessed and mastered, and now they want to package that up in a value set to be able to provide amazing abundance for others, and then receiving abundance through this experience. So, but what's really important is understanding. I just wanted to bring the attention to this SoulGal Academy. When you're in your power and you're stepping into alignment with a frequency of love and joy and bliss and peace, because you are the sovereign of your own being. Now, when you make decisions for what you're creating in your life, you're now doing it in alignment with what feels truly good for you. You're doing it because you're doing it with joy, and you're doing it because you're moving towards something that's really pleasurable rather than running away from something that's fear and painful. You're doing it because you're drawn to something. You've got a vision that's so much bigger than, you know, just the goal. You have a big why, and the bigger the why, the higher you fly. The more that you're able to spread your wings and really go take the inspired action. You don't need external motivation. It's an inspired action, because you've got the energy that is life force vitality that is not being depleted and diffused and distracted and fragmented with all the different distractions and attention sets in your life. You're like, no, I'm the authority of my own life. This is where I'm going. This is what I'm in alignment with. These are my core values, and this is my intention. And then you can direct your energy that way. I know that you've got life experiences that maybe that there's some wounds around it. And then if you've got those wounds still activated, they will deplete you of your energy until you go and heal those wounds and awaken to the wonderful gifts that are in those experiences for you to be able to step fully into your personal power. And so I hope this has been of value to you. I really want you to be able to be on your own journey of really stepping into the sovereignty of your own being and being the biggest light in your life, so that you are truly speaking your truth, and you're doing it from a vibrational frequency of love and not fear. Because when you're in a frequency of love, you'll speak your truth, and you're not attached to what other people are thinking about you. You don't really care. Like, you care for your message more than you do for what people's projection of their own limitations are that being sent, projected onto you. And so here's another thing I wanted to just bring it to attention, because stepping into your power can sometimes mean, and your biggest shining bright light, that a lot of people, one of the big things that come up, people are scared about the people that are in their life moving away, or that people might not necessarily like them, or you might have stood in your light before and you've experienced people like throw energy back at you. They're not very nice or whatever it is. One of the key things when you shine a bright light, what happens if people around you haven't done the energy work within themselves and looked at the shadow parts of themselves? When you shine a light, they're like right in front of the light, like they can't run from their own shadow anymore. And if they're not awake, they will presume that you are doing it's your fault, because they're now experiencing the pain again of stuff that's been pushed down, suppressed, oppressed, and oppressed. But really all you're doing is that you're just being in your light, and people are aware of that. Don't let that make you dim your light. Just simply remember that people, and hold space, love, and compassion for others while they're working through their stuff. And most people will want to move away because it's too painful to look at, and they don't necessarily have the skill set, energy-wise, tool technologies, right, to be able to cope with those experiences. And so it's a very most loving act that you can be, is just to do the inner work for yourself. Learn to harness and master your own energy, clear up all those shadows within yourself, and integrate yourself in the most holistic way possible. And that way you can become this bigger capacity to be able to help other people. Some are going to run away. Others are going to go, oh, this feels uncomfortable. But I can tell that you're in a love frequency. And they might not use these words, but they're going to feel it because they come to you for your energy. But they're like, oh, I want to say at some level, consciously or subconsciously, they want to shift the wounds so that they too can awaken. And so be on your path, be the most magnificent, awesome being of love and light that you are, because that's who you are at the core. You're not any other label, you're just love and light. And may you be blessed with looking into your life journey, of your human journey as part of your soul journey, and looking at the core elements in your life of like, here's the gift in this, here's the gift in this, here's the gift in this, here's the gift in this. And if you've had psychopaths or narcissists or sociopaths in your life, then you're blessed, because it's preparing you to look at the contrast of that darkness, to remind you that all you are is love and light, and that your power is in taking back your sovereignty of self. But that's with a capital S, your big soul, not your ego self, but your big soul, so that you are really truly standing ready for what is truly evolving at a rapid pace, quickening globally. I mean, we're about to shift through energetically. A lot of people are just not keeping up because they're just too busy trying to stay low in the vibration. But you must be raising your vibration in order for you to be able to literally keep up with the transitioning that's going on our planet right now. And I say that with love, not for fear, just because you can feel it. You can feel that there's something going on. And I know that you're listening to this, and if you got right to the end, it's because you're like, it's resonating with you. Then use it to be a relief, if you like, as an opportunity to go, oh, this is what I can do next. I can look at these dot points in my life, and I can look at and be appreciative about these elements, and recognizing that they're all designed as part of my spiritual awakening, part of my journey for my soul, to prepare me for this moment in time to step up into my full light leadership, love, light leadership role. Much love, many blessings. And if this has been of value to you, please share it. That would be really wonderful. Please share it, and like, love, subscribe, leave a comment. Truly looking forward to hearing that from you. Take care. Lots of love. Bye.